All right, well, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to our 21-day live GMP feature. Today is day 12, and we are going to talk about process controls. What are they, and why do we require them? So, process controls essentially are every little bit of documentation and tracking and effort that goes into our formulations. So we talked about operations, which was more based on premises and premises controls. But this specifically is about our formulations. It's about how we do, what we do, why we do it, and ensuring that it's done in the same consistent way time after time after time. So the process controls as laid out in the NHPR say to formulate the product and ensure that it adheres to regulatory requirements and claims stated on the label. So that is basically just as simple as it sounds. When we make our product, they have to adhere to any regulatory requirements that exist for that specific product, and any claims that they have approved for that product need to be matched within that product formulation. Next in line is to prepare a master formulation sheet. So they call it a production document. In my experience and in my training that I've taken, it's always been called a master formulation sheet. And so you have one of these sheets for each one of your formulas, and it goes through the exact formula. It goes through the exact percentages of every item in it. It goes through the exact process to make it, and all of that good fun stuff. So the records must be accurate, must be an accurate representation of the master product, and include documentation that each I skipped a step here. So we're still talking about master production sheet. So that's the formulation sheet, and you have to have a single manufacturer sheet for each single product, and you have to have the quality assurance personnel sign off on it to say that it is approved and ready to go to formulation, basically. Now, I was getting confused with the next line here. I've got my notes pretty tight together today. So included in that master formulation sheet documentation, you're going to need to prepare a batch record. So every single batch you make requires a batch record. That record must be an accurate representation of the master production document, so the master formulation sheet, and it has to include documentation showing that every single step has been done. So your batch sheet will be your processes. So measure out 100 grams of cocoa butter, and you would measure it and check that off on your batch record. Then it would be, measure out 100 mils of camelina oil. So check that off. We have done that. Then it would be, melt 50 grams of beeswax, and then you would go and check that off on your batch record. Now your batch record will match up with your master formulation sheet, and so you should be able to just print a single batch record every single time, and as you're going through, you just check it off, check it off, check it off, and ensure that every single step that is required to make that product is checked off. So it's just it's a way to double verify that all the steps are being taken correctly, all the weights are being measured correctly, all of the volumes are being measured correctly, so that we have the same consistent exact product every single time. So your formulation sheet and your batch record work together to make that particular batch. Now it gets into allocate and track each batch of manufactured product by an individual control number. Now this is where we get into the lot number, and I know there have been questions in the past about what is a batch number versus what is a lot number, and the way that I've explained it before is, let's say that Tracy makes 20 liters of sanitizer today, and that is batch A090220, let's say. So that batch then gets split up into 2 or 3 retail partners that it's going to. So retail partner A would get lot 1, retail partner B would get lot 2, retail partner C would get lot 3 of batch A090220. If I was to make a second batch of sanitizer in that same day, my second batch would be B090220. And if I made a third batch, it would be C09, and so on and so forth. So our batch is the large encompassing mass of what you're producing, and the lot number is the individual retail partners that you're splitting it up and sending it to. So I hope that makes sense for you guys. So we're going to be allocating and tracking each batch of manufactured product by an individual lot number. That's very important, because if ever you have a recall, they're going to need your batch number and your lot number. And if you can provide that on your batch record and on your shipping records to your retail partners, your recall is going to go super quick and super smooth. It's all about protecting yourself as much as it is protecting the consumers. The next in line here says record and evaluate any deviations from written and approved manufacturing processes, standards, and test methods with final approval by the QAP. So that's the quality assurance person, and we talked about that the other day. So when you're making your product, you really shouldn't have any deviations. And if you do have a deviation, you better have a really good reason as to why. Now, if you were working in a larger company, you would have that quality assurance person who would have to oversee and approve you making that change and making that deviation before he would allow you to manufacture the product. So it would be you go to the quality assurance person and you say, hey, quality assurance person, I'd like to make this change for this and this reason. He would either sign off on it or not sign off on it. Then you would move to formulating and processing. Now, because we are our own quality assurance person, it gets a little complicated, and this is where we've discussed before, you can only wear one hat at one time. So when you are formulating, you should only be formulating exactly as per what your master formulation sheet says. You should not be making changes on the fly to your formula. If you have an idea that will improve or change your formula in a way you would like to, that is something you do after the fact as the quality assurance person, not ever as the formulator. It's a little complicated because we wear many hats, and so I need to be really clear on that, because that is where a lot of small companies get into trouble, is their batch record and their formulation record says one thing, but their product is actually another thing. And so if ever that product is recalled, if ever that product is pulled by Health Canada and tested, and it does not match your original records for it, you could be in a lot of trouble. So this is all about protecting yourself and the safety of your own company, not only about protecting consumers and giving them high quality products. Now we're moving on. Conduct manufacturing, packaging, and storage operations according to written procedures and appropriate sanitation principles in a manner that protects against adulteration and in conditions that minimize the potential for contamination. Now, if you are following your sanitation program and your health and hygiene program, which we have already reviewed, then this entire sentence is really null and void, so long as you are following your sanitation program, because your sanitation program will allow for your manufacturing and your packaging and your storage to all be done in that clean environment with that plan in place for how you're going to do it. That's part of your sanitation, it's part of your operations and procedures. And so really, if we're following all the other steps that we've made out leading up to this one, then this one should really not even truly exist. Then it says we're going to identify all materials, products, samples, containers, processing lines, and major equipment at all times to indicate their contents and or status. Now, this we covered when we talked about doing an intake of inventory. So we didn't really touch on, and I'm not sure if we did during operations, but we will right now. All of your equipment should be labeled as well. So you know how we talked the other day about inventory and making sure that you assign a special unique code to every item that's coming in, and we talked about butters could be, you know, BUT, and oils, vegetable oils could be, you know, VO, and so on and so forth. So you're also going to identify for your inventory and recording purposes your equipment. So maybe you have 3 different scales. So you're going to have, you know, maybe WS for weight scale. So let's go WS001, and maybe that is your micro scale. And maybe you're going to have, you know, WS002 and that is your packaging scale. So it weighs your total package contents, because the micro scales won't weigh anything that's heavier than, I don't know, 100 grams or something. So we have to label all of our equipment as well as our raw materials, and we have to have a list of everything. So a list of all our raw ingredients and a list of all of our equipment that we use, and we have to have it all assigned to unique codes, and that becomes our inventory system. And that is what this particular line is asking us for, is to ensure that everything is labeled with the unique code immediately as we receive it into our work area. Next in line, ensure adequate procedures are in place to prevent extraneous materials from being included in the products and finished packages. So, we're going to make sure that procedures are in place to make sure that there's no, let's say you have a dog, there's no dog hair that gets on your packaging before you send it out to retail. You're going to ensure that, you have your work area clean, sanitized, vacuumed, ready to go. You're going to have your animals out of the area. When you're working, you can't have them anywhere near your stuff, and you're going to ensure through those procedures and that drawn out list of how-tos, you will ensure that no dog hair, let's say, will get on your package. So it's important to have those things in place. Just because if ever you have an inspector come out, or you have your site inspected for any reason, it's really important that they can see the written outline of what your procedures are. It really secures your own standing with Health Canada to have that actually written out and written down and followed regularly. And then again, you will have your sanitation record that says, yes, I did this on this and this day. Yes, I did this on this and this day. And you will have signed off on that. And that will be protection for yourself. So we're just going to go quickly through the last, well, there's actually a couple pages of these. So I'll go through one more and then we'll finish the rest off tomorrow, because I am trying to keep these videos to about 15 minutes. So we are going to ensure adequate procedures are in place to identify, store, and dispose of rejected or contaminated or adulterated products. So we spoke about inventory, we spoke about incoming materials, receiving them, reviewing them, and analyzing them to make sure that they look, smell, feel correct. And then if they are correct, you accept them into inventory. If they're not, you have the option of rejecting them or putting them into quarantine. So what this particular line is asking us for is, how are we identifying that area? Do we have it separated? Is it on a separate shelf? Is it in a separate bin? Does it say quarantine on it? Does it say rejected material? And then a step further than that, how do we dispose of that rejected material? How do we get rid of it? What do we do with it to ensure that it's not getting mixed back in with our regular inventory of raw materials? So these are all things that we need to have written down. We need to have them established. We need to have a process in place for them. And all of this is worked out within your GMP and your SOP when you're writing out the manuals. All of this is covered within those manuals and those templates. And it just makes for a very streamlined package of processes and procedures that Health Canada then has, so they actually know and understand how you operate and run your business. So that is all the time I have for today. And I will finish off, there's a whole other page of process control stuff for when we're manufacturing. I will finish off the second portion of that list tomorrow. And if we have some time, I will go over the master formulation sheet and the batch record sheet and what those look like as well. And if we don't have time to fit it all tomorrow, then we will flow over into Friday with it, because this is really an important part, in my opinion. All of us, we don't want to necessarily think about the business, we want to do the making, right? And so as a maker who's passionate about what they're doing and what they're making and how that's impacting people's lives, I think that this part needs to be absolutely, without a doubt, I's dotted, T's crossed, and done super well. Not just for, like I said, the Canadian consumer, but also for yourself and your own protection in your business. So that is all for today. Questions, comments, drop them down in the comment section there, and I will get to them. I do know that we had some questions last week about template packages and when I would have those ready. I am working on them as we speak, and I have to figure out how I'm going to separate the template packages from the actual courses themselves and what that looks like, but they are coming and they are coming quickly. I should be able to easily have them to you guys sometime in the month of September. So that is all for now, folks. I hope you have a great afternoon and we will chat tomorrow. Thanks. Bye for now.